Feel free to take a seat. I'd like to introduce former congressional candidate January Walker. She's going to be talking about how AI is integrating with blockchain to return control of your identity.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's so excellent to meet you. I'm happy to be here, super excited. And I just wanted to get a little bit of gauge of the room really quick. How many of you are familiar with self-sovereign identity at this point? Pretty much everybody. I hear that Supermoon is like super big on identity, so this will be perfect. But in today's world, what we are seeing more than anything is that we have the advancement of AI. And with this, your information is being input into modules, it's being collected, and it's being pushed out into the world, and you don't know where it is. And so with my journey into self-sovereign identity, I was very concerned with the company that I was working for and how they were collecting information on people that were their customers and then taking that and aggregating it into algorithms. And with this, the customers never really 100% knew what data was being collected on them. They didn't know where that data was coming from. And they didn't know the part that AI was playing in the collection of that data and how it was just being brought all together. And I wanted them to stop using people's behavioral biometrics. So who here has heard that term before? Behavioral biometrics. 1, 2, 3, 4, couple, right? So that, and this is exactly the problem that we're having today. And this is what they're putting into AI technology. So behavioral biometrics is the way that you walk, talk, type. There's over 2,000 data points on you that companies are collecting. So this is from your phone, from your computer, from the games you play, and it could just be how hard you press on the screen. It could be how you swipe. And with this, we're finding that we're giving away this information and we don't really seem to care. We're like, whatever, I want to use this service. And so there's this disconnect between what the user has and the end goal of where they need to be. So people are just placing their trust. And this is kind of disjointed worldwide, where we're seeing over 71% of the countries out there having some kind of privacy legislation. So up here, you have, these are all the countries with legislation. The yellow ones are without legislation. The gray ones are where there's no data available. So we can see that there's this trend around privacy where they're really starting to try and dial into controlling the information and giving control back to people. But there's really no way to control that because the legal systems that we have today, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the capability, they're built on case law, and the laws are inconsistent across platforms. So if you go to Europe, your legislation that protects your information is a whole lot different from the information that is protected within America. And a lot of times you just have no cover. And when you start looking at some of this information, it starts to get really personal, especially when it comes to your healthcare data and information. Keep in mind, all of this is being aggregated into AI that you don't know about, and it's being sold on you because your data is the most expensive thing out there right now. People are fighting over it. They're hacking into your system to have access to it. And with this, if we look at this specific example, so your heart rate data, if you go to the doctor's office, if you go to your provider, they will have to be underneath HIPAA legislation. You'll be actually protected, right? But within this app, you have absolutely no protection, even though it's the same information that's going across both sections. So this is part of the problem here. And then if your data goes to a third party, there's no expectation of protection from that third party if it's shared outside the ecosystem. And you don't even know if the app that you're signing up with has vendors that they're integrating with. And so where this starts to tie in to the projects that you are working on with self-sovereign identity and biometrics and AI is that you can actually protect yourself from AI by focusing on blockchain identity wallets. So when you put your information there, when you get protected, when your biometrics gets issued into a verifiable credential that only you have access to, that's when you can actually start to protect yourself and the information that's been happening today. I don't know why this isn't moving on to the next thing. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much. So, with AI, one of the things that they are focusing on when it comes to this identity portion that you can actually put inside of your identity wallet is your the actual like shortcuts that you have. So, for example, if you quickly want to, how do I put this? Let's actually take a step back. I'm going to skip over this slide because I rushed through everything else, so I didn't get into the depth that I wanted to. But with your biometrics and with your self-sovereign identity, you can start to store information about yourself and not let it get out into the public. And this could be how you pause while you type. This could be, okay, how quickly does this person pull up this information? And where this starts to get really, really important, and I'm going to skip ahead just 2 slides here because I feel like this one is probably where we should really start to have a discussion about all of this and how it's tying into AI specifically. So there are employers that are implementing biometric measurement devices in their workspaces. And so when you go into the office, not only can they see where you're at in the office, what it is that you're doing, are you working, what areas of the office are the most used, but they can start to see your actual biometric data that is tied into all of this. And so what that means is let's take example, there was a girl at Target who was pregnant, but she didn't know that she was pregnant. She was underage, and her father took her to the store, and with these biometric devices, they could actually start to see that, and this is through aggregating all this information through AI, they could actually see that this girl was pregnant. So instead, what they started doing is they started pelting the dad with ads about, hey, you need to get diapers, you need to get these doctor's visits, you need to do all this stuff. And we're going to start seeing that in our office spaces where your employer will essentially be able to see if you are pregnant before perhaps you even know that you're pregnant through the aggregation of this data and the collection of this data, instead of that data going directly to you in your identity wallet where you can then access it, or if necessary, they can ask you for access it to share it on that level. So there's this piece in the middle that's really missing here. And it becomes even more alarming to me when you recognize that they can also tell if you're upset in the office or how much you're actually working in the office. And so we really need to start implementing this self-sovereign identity piece, because say you're using it at home, right? So pretty soon you'll be able to walk home and your home will recognize, hello, bloop, 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 welcome home, Elena. It's so good to see you. And with that, if you do not have your biometric data inside of your self-sovereign wallet protected by you, and it's out there being traded on the internet as it is today, pretty soon people can just use that to utilize deep fake technology to pretend to be you, to walk up to your door and to go into your home. And the same thing is going to start happening when you go into the office, or maybe you walk up to your car and your car is supposed to automatically just unlock when you get there. And so by having this, it gives you that extra, having self-sovereign identity wallets, it gives you that extra layer of protection from the outside world. So where you actually start owning your data. And then, of course, with this, you can use these wallets side of your biometric data as well. You can use it for, we were talking about blockchain voting. So with your biometric data, you can then take that and you can look at these systems and say, hey, is this voter a real person? Are we interacting with this person? Are they the ones that are actually casting their ballot? Or is it their spouse that's trying to cast their ballot for them? And we can prevent that with this technology. And so then all of a sudden you eliminate all these conversations that we've been having over multiple years, because you can say, this is a real person, they cast the ballot, this is who they voted for. And it's immutable at that point. And that is all I wanted to share with you today. So I wanted to open it up, see if you had any questions, have a conversation.
How do you think about the incentive structure? How do we make sure people play along with this and don't just collect data about us, on their own?
How do they collect data? So that is where people like me come in. Essentially, people that are privacy champions that advocate for legislation to be implemented to protect people. And a lot of that is teaching them what's happening, showing them, hey, these are what the employers in your state are doing, or saying, you now have to return this data back to people. And there's reasons that people would be very interested in this. So one use case that's being looked at is your health records. And with that, it would make it so that only you and your provider would be able to unlock that health record. Right. And there's reasons to have that today, because we're seeing legislation coming out where they're saying, hey, you have to turn over your health records to us. And it's like, well, why? That's wrong. You don't need to see that kind of information on your citizens. So you're going to see some adoption on that level. Did you want me to expand during that question? Yes, it is going to be a legal regulatory solution. And I think over time, you're going to see people driving towards this solution, because they're going to be looking for things to say. Here's an example. I now have a digital driver's license that was test run by the state of Utah, and that uses cryptography. So that would need an identity wallet to put that driver's license in. And, everybody wants that, right? I don't know. I hate the paper driver's licenses personally. Yeah, thank you. That is a really interesting question. So it can go both ways. First of all, I definitely support. So let's take a step back. If we had the tools of Web3, the self-sovereign identity wallet, integrated into Web 2, so with Facebook, right? Let's take Facebook for example, TikTok for example, where you control your information. You don't have to give your first name, last name, email, any of that. You just have your DID number. That's your decentralized ID. And then you integrate it with your app, kind of essentially similar to like SSOing through an API, right? So if you did that, you, depending on how much that company wanted to give you control, you could essentially have that biometric data behind identity. You could have that biometric data behind the identity wallet, or you could authorize them to collect that information on you. So it just depends on which way you want to go. But yes, yeah, you could go both ways.
I have a question about the using your data to, I guess, for the election integrity. How do you balance the voter anonymity aspect of that with election integrity? Because it seems like that's where most of the, I guess, the debate is, or the lack of understanding is. Like there's a wall there between knowing who someone actually voted for and protecting the anonymity of the voter. So I'm just interested if you have any topics on the balance of that.
Yes, absolutely. This is a great question. So with self-sovereign identity, if you use something called double layer encryption, you can you will be able to cast your ballot as a voter, and you will also be able to have that anonymity factor as well. So essentially what it does is it just says, yes, this is a real person. Yes, we're interacting with them. Yes, they have their voter registration. But on the public facing side, you can't actually see who it is that does that. So you still keep that anonymous factor in voting, but it's guaranteed to be the person that is actually on that voter registration. Yeah. I wish I had an architectural diagram right now. Go ahead. Yeah. So I am pro technology, right? I'm not against AI. I'm not against blockchain. I'm not against machine learning or anything like that. I think that, yes, that information can absolutely help you. The difference is right now they can see that it belongs to you. And that's the problem, where they shouldn't have that level of access to your information and to be able to have this entire ecosystem. When we look at companies, I won't tell you what company this is, but I will tell you they're a very, very large tech company. They do streaming services. Do what you will with that. I can just speak loud. So do what you will with that. And they can tell every single thing about you. They can tell you about you, how many people you have in your family. Do you have pets? What are the ages of your children? They already know your children's names. Is this a microphone? Oh, whoa. That is excellent. Very cool. Okay. How's that? Yeah. Okay, excellent. Sweet. So with that, it's concerning. So like you said, it can be used for good. And I'm fine with it being used for good, but the information that's being transported out, it shouldn't be labeled with your stuff. And if it's feeding their AI machine learning modules or their ecosystems, then you should, one, be aware of it, two, have given them permission to do that, three, be able to revoke that data at any time, which self-sovereign identity gives you the ability to do. And then from there, if they're making money off of it, you should be compensated as well. So there's a few factors that play into that. So yes, let's contribute, but let's contribute in an ethical way where you as an individual are respected instead of treated as the next generation of products.
So where is it make it different to store that same data, same data, same manner, store that data in the wallet?
Exactly. That's exactly what you want to do. You want to be able to store this information inside of your wallet, and then if you want to share it, have the ability to give that permission.
So when we're interfacing with all our fancy devices now, the ability for these programs, I'm a software developer, like I can write the programs that collect this information. What about the story? It's almost like a Target story. My father-in-law is a fly fisherman. He walked into a Bass Pro Shop, swears he did not browse the internet for this product, receives an email.
Yeah.
Are you still interested in the thing that he looked at in the store? So, it's almost like that's, it's on me if I'm TikToking it or whatever, but like, there legislation or something in the works that's going to prevent that. That's like next level invasion almost,
Right. So you're 100% correct. So the example given here is when you go into a store and you are actually prompted to receive ads from that store. And so one of the projects that my friend works on, he did biometric advertising in businesses based off of geolocation. So what that means is you would be able to run ads to your customers based off of what their interests were. And some stores, I don't know if this Bass store participated in it. He didn't have his device on it. I don't know on that one, actually, surprisingly. But there's It's in Florida. So yes, there's definitely, well, so that's actually interesting because when you look at or not companies, countries. So let's take Singapore, for example. Has anybody here been to Singapore? Okay, we have a few people. Did you like it? It is too perfect. It's too perfect. So one of the cool things about Singapore is it's actually, I think, the safest country in the world, or second safest country for women. So you can walk around and nobody will mess with you, which is kind of a big deal. But even more than that, if somebody were to attack you and steal your purse, they have enough cameras that they could track down that individual within 24 hours. So when you look at this, there is that question of how do you protect yourself with blockchain identity? And I think that there's some conversations that need to be had around that, but there is absolutely zero legislation in the United States that's actually aimed at protecting you or your information. The stuff that they're doing with TikTok right now is more protectionism of their people and their population, because they know that that data is valuable and it can be used to feed information about you. So essentially your user profile, it can be used to feed a profile about you. And then by using that information with AI and machine learning, especially in elections, they can manipulate you to vote in ways they want you to vote. And we've been seeing that since about 2016. So the stuff with TikTok or anything that you see on the Hill today, it has absolutely nothing to do with privacy and protecting you. But that's why I'm here. That's one of the reasons that I ran, is because I did want to create legislation that at the end of the day made it so you could have true freedom.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Kind of to your point, does any of this fall under the single consent, double consent side of things? Because I know you're not allowed to record conversation or video of someone without both parties.
If you're on a phone.
If you're on a phone,
Yeah.
yeah. So is there any with this data, like, is there any legislation that actually includes data in the single and double consent laws?
Well, that's a really interesting question, because you have agencies that spy on the American people every day. So if you're not using technology like Telegram or Signal, you essentially have no right to privacy. Like, just don't expect to have any of that. But if you, and there are other things that they can collect about you. So going back to the 2000 plus biometrics that you have here, 2000 gestures, they can see the way that you're holding your phone, right? So if you were to call some of these, like the financial sector is very guilty of doing this, but they have technology where it's like, how is this person holding their phone? How are they typing in the keys? You know, is this person really the individual that I'm interacting with? And so what I've been trying to do is to get them to step aside from those methods of using covert behavioral biometrics. And you can use, like, just by talking with your voice, they are recognizing that information. It's feeding their AI algorithms. But just by stepping aside from that and saying, hey, why don't you interface with this blockchain identity wallet instead, where you can instantly know if that is the right person that you're supposed to be interacting with.
See my phone is all shattered. I'm constantly like doing this.
That is actually going to be something that they probably have specifically on you.
So they'll know it's actually me.
Yeah, they'll be like, this is Chris, he flips his phone. But great questions, great questions. Okay, well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.